Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tracing a fascinating and, frankly, pretty terrifying line of innovation, the history of explosive weapons. We're going to take a journey from ancient incendiaries all the way to the battlefields of today, where conflict itself is literally being redefined by autonomous machines.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the very first sparks of incendiary weapons, then see how gunpowder completely reshaped the world. From there, we'll take the fight to the skies before diving into the age of precision. And we'll finish up on today's new drone battlefield. All right, let's jump in.
I mean, that's a massive leap, isn't it? From a simple flaming arrow to a self-guided drone that thinks for itself. That's really the big question we're tackling today. We're going to track the key technological breakthroughs to see how the very nature of conflict has been transformed again and again.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Long before the bomb as we know it, humans were already, experts at weaponizing fire. Just think about flaming arrows or pots of burning oil being lobbed over castle walls. It's simple, but absolutely terrifyingly effective.
But one of the first real game changers was this stuff, Greek fire. Seriously, just imagine you're on a wooden ship and you get hit with a jet of fire that water can't even put out. It was this closely guarded secret of the Byzantine Empire, and it gave them a massive naval advantage for centuries. So the next great leap forward also came from chemistry, but this one was a total accident. You had Chinese monks trying to create an elixir for immortality, and instead, they discovered gunpowder. This simple mix of sulfur, charcoal, and saltpeter would go on to become probably the most important chemical discovery in the entire history of warfare. And this new powder, well, it didn't stay a secret in China for long. It spread like wildfire along the Silk Road. And as it got into the hands of people in the Middle East and Europe, it gave rise to a whole new class of weapon, the cannon.
Now, here's why cannons were so revolutionary. They didn't just make sieges easier, they made the entire medieval castle totally obsolete. For hundreds of years, the ultimate defense was a high stone wall. But suddenly, that wall wasn't a defense anymore. It was just a big target. This forced everybody to go back to the drawing board, leading to those low, star-shaped forts that were designed specifically to deflect cannon fire.
What's so wild about this timeline is just how much the pace of change picks up. It took centuries to get from Greek fire to cannons, a few more for dynamite, but then just look at the 20th century. We jump from the very first aerial bomb all the way to the nuclear age in a few decades. And now, in the 21st, these huge shifts are happening almost year to year. The pace is just accelerating exponentially. You know, for basically all of human history, war was fought on a two-dimensional plane. But then, the invention of the airplane added a third dimension, the sky, and with it, a terrifying new vulnerability for every single person on the ground. Just picture this for a second. The very first aerial bombing, it wasn't some complex system. It was one guy, Giulio Gavati, leaning out of a shaky biplane and just dropping a grenade by hand. That single act opened a total Pandora's box, setting the stage for the massive bombing campaigns that would define the next 100 years of war. So the next logical step was, well, to get the pilot out of the equation entirely. During World War II, Nazi Germany unleashed these two terrifying new weapons. The V-1, which was basically a pilotless jet bomb, the granddaddy of the modern cruise missile. And then there was the even crazier V-2, a ballistic rocket that broke the sound barrier. It was the direct forerunner of the ICBMs that would come to define the Cold War.
Of course, the ultimate evolution of the bomb in this era was something else entirely. In 1945, the atomic bomb showed the world that a single weapon could literally erase a city. This wasn't just another step up the ladder of destruction, it was a completely new game, creating a terrifying logic for global power that we are still living with today.
After the sheer brute force of World War II and the mind-boggling scale of the atomic bomb, the next huge revolution wasn't about making bigger explosions. No, it was about making them smarter.
So, what exactly makes a smart bomb smart? Well, instead of just being dropped and hoping it lands somewhere useful, it's actively guided to its target. Whether it's using lasers, GPS, or even a tiny camera in its nose, a precision-guided munition, or PGM, can be steered to hit a very specific point, like a single building, a moving vehicle, or even one particular window. This data from the first Gulf War back in 1991 is absolutely stunning, and it shows you exactly why this tech was so revolutionary. I mean, look at this. The vast majority of bombs dropped were still your standard dumb bombs. But that tiny little 9% sliver of smart bombs was responsible for 75% of all the successful hits. The takeaway here was just profound. Military strategy basically pivoted overnight. It wasn't about carpet bombing a huge area anymore. It was about surgical strikes. You could now achieve more destruction more effectively with way fewer planes and way fewer bombs.
And that brings us right up to the current era, where that same idea of precision has merged with the new frontier of unmanned flight. We're talking, of course, about the drone.
The Predator drone started out as just an eye in the sky, for surveillance. But in 2001, for the first time, it was armed with a missile. That one moment in Afghanistan launched the age of modern drone warfare. All of a sudden, you could have a weapon that hangs out over a battlefield for hours, controlled by a pilot sitting safely in a chair thousands of miles away. But the latest disruption isn't just about the technology. It's about the economics. For decades, being a military superpower meant having the most expensive, most advanced hardware. But now, as we're seeing in conflicts all over the world, a simple $500 drone, which is often just a hobbyist kit with a bomb strapped to it, can take out a multi-million-dollar tank. This just completely flips the old logic of warfare on its head.
And these cheap drones do so much more than just attack tanks. They are the new eyes in the sky, providing constant surveillance. They act as decoys, swarming and confusing billion-dollar air defense systems. Just their presence forces troops on the ground to totally rethink how they move, how they communicate, even how they hide. They become an essential, absolutely unavoidable part of modern hybrid warfare.
And all of this leaves us with a really challenging question. The entire history we've just traced has been a story where power belonged to whoever had the most advanced, most expensive technology. But what happens when that's not the case anymore? What does power even mean when a $500 drone can destroy a tank? This is the new reality, and you can bet that military planners everywhere are scrambling to find an answer.